There's a great system in your business. The only problem, the system, is you. So there's a great system in your business. It's reliable, it works 60 plus hours a week, it never calls in sick, and it makes every important decision in the business. The only problem is that system is you. And systems aren't supposed to be people. I'm Rory Prendergast, and I've spent 20 years being the most expensive piece of equipment in my own business before I figured out this fundamental truth. If you are the system, you don't have a business, you've got a very complicated job. And probably some of your team are on a higher rate per hour than you are when you work that out. So in the next 8 minutes or so, I will show you how to extract yourself from being the system and turn yourself into the system builder instead. Let me ask you something. What happens in your business when the system goes on holiday, when the system gets sick, when the system wants to work normal hours like a normal human being with a family? So I had a client called Mike who owned a successful construction company, 20 employees, a great reputation, but Mike was the system for everything important: customer relationships, quality control, business development, problem solving. And one day Mike said to me, "Hey Rory, I can't even go to my own daughter's school play without my phone buzzing every 10 minutes. And here's what he didn't realize. He'd accidentally built a business that needed a human being as a system. Therefore, his business wasn't scalable, it wasn't sellable, it wasn't sustainable, it was just an expensive way to employ himself." So I said, "Mike, this didn't happen overnight. It happened because every time there was a problem, you solved it. Every time there was a decision to make, you made it. Every time somebody needed guidance, you gave it." But here's the trap. Every time you stepped in, you prevented your business from developing its own capability. You became the path of least resistance for every single challenge. And Mike said to me, "Yeah, but Rory, it was faster if I did it myself." And he was right, it was faster. But faster today actually means slower forever, because his team never learned how to solve problems without him. So now he'd created what I call a learned helplessness across his entire organization. So here's how you stop being the system and start building systems instead. I call this the system replacement process. And it's based on the principle that you can't remove yourself until you've replaced yourself. So there are 3 phases. So phase 1, systems mapping. So first, you need to see where you are the system. So for 1 week, track every time somebody comes to you for a decision, an approval, or problem solving. But don't just track what they ask, track what system or process should have been used to handle that instead. Mike discovered he was the system for 23 different processes in the business. But the shocking part was that 18 of those functions already had procedures. His team just didn't trust them enough to actually use them without his approval. For each function where you're the system, design a replacement. But here's the key. Don't design procedures, design decision-making frameworks. So Mike created what he called Client Issue Resolution Framework. It's a simple decision tree that handled 80% of client problems without him. But instead of rigid steps for fluid problems, he gave his team the logic for making good decisions. Phase 3, decision testing. Start small, pick one function where you're the system and implement the replacement. But this is crucial. You have to resist the urge to jump back in when things aren't going exactly the way you want. So Mike started with procurement. The first month was a little bit hard on him. His team made mistakes he wouldn't have made. But by month 3, they were handling procurement better than he ever could because they'd learned from those mistakes. So it was actually better than before. So here's actually what happened when Mike stopped being the system. His team stopped asking permission and started taking ownership. Client satisfaction improved because responses were faster and more consistent. But the biggest change was in Mike himself. He went from working in the system to actually working on the system. So 6 months later, Mike took a 3-week holiday, his first real break in about 15 or 16 years. But instead of having 200 missed calls, he got 3. So he'd finally built what he thought he'd built years ago, a business that worked without him. So if you're ready to stop being the system and start building systems, that's exactly what we do in my Systems for Scaling program. So I work with business owners who have 5 to 50 employees to systematically extract themselves from being the bottleneck and turn them into a system designer instead. It's for business owners who are serious about building something that's much bigger than themselves. So if that's you, then check out the link in the description. But if you want to start this process right now, just begin with the system mapping exercise this week. So track where you're the system and ask yourself, what should be handling this instead of me? And remember, you didn't start the business to become a human system. You started it to create freedom and to build something valuable. So stop being the system. Start designing systems. Your business and your life depend on it. If this was of interest to you and you want to learn more, click the subscribe button.